Last week, I posted a video about why willpower won't stop you from losing it. If you didn't watch it, in short, when you perceive a threatening event somewhere outside in the world or inside of your head, your nervous system fires a threat response, which is fight, flight, or freeze. And when you engage in this fight, flight, or freeze, you're creating damage to the relationships around you, with your kids, with your ex, with other people, and that creates even more threatening events that your nervous system perceives as threatening, and that perpetuates this reactivity loop that just creates more and more damage in your life. This is the reason number one you got divorced in the first place. Every divorced dad I speak to has the exact same problems. Co-parenting fights, kids don't listen, life is complex, internal instability, invasive thoughts, all of that. But underneath all of those problems, in every single conversation I had, lies something bigger. And it's the fear of losing the relationship with the kids. That's at the base of it all. And that fear can be either a source of destruction of the relationship with the kids, or it can be a source of drive and purpose in building a great life for himself and for his kids. And a great example of this is my client, Tyson. By the time Tyson came to me, he was only getting one supervised visit every 2 weeks. So he was showing up to those visits, just going through the motions. He was physically present, but emotionally, he was absent. He was completely disconnected and just surviving, not just during that visit, but in life in general. And the relationship with his children, the thing he said mattered more than anything else, it was disappearing right in front of his eyes. Concurrently, he was stuck in a never-ending conflict with his ex, blaming her for the situation he was in. And that's when we started working together. Fast forward about 6 months later, he had rebuilt a healthy co-parenting relationship with his ex, and his relationship with his kids had become something he described as precious again. His full client interview can be found in the description. And if you want to know more on how this happened, you can go to dadsrise.com and download a free guide. But I'm telling you this now because what I'm about to share in this video is maybe hard to sit with, but crucial for you to understand. So stay with me. My name is Gleb, and I work specifically with divorced dads who are stuck in reactivity loops that I'm going to describe today. If this is your first time here and what I'm saying lands, hit subscribe. This channel is built for dads who are done managing it and ready to change it. Today, in the next question, we're not exploring why things happen. We're exploring what it's doing right now to your relationship with your kids, why you're still working on getting everything under control. Because here is what most dads do with this, right? When they get triggered, they count the blowups. The moments they lost it, for example, they said the thing or they scared the room, and they use those as the measure of how much damage has been done. If it's been a quiet week, like they blew up once or not, they tell themselves they're okay. The kids are okay and they're working on it. Or like Tyson, instead of blowing up, they may disconnect and escape, becoming shadow of their former self. What they're not seeing, however, is what's happening between the blowups or during the time they sedate themselves. And what's happening is that the relationship doesn't erode only in explosions. It erodes in the ordinary life. And there are 3 specific ways it happens, 3 risks that are running right now for you now that you're divorced, whether or not you lost it or escaped this week. The first one is parental alienation. And I want to be careful here because this word gets used in a way that points exactly and directly at her. And sometimes that's fair. Strategic alienation is real. For example, withholding information, scheduling activities during your parenting time, coaching the kids on what to say to you or what to think about you, and forbidding them to love you. That exists. That is parental alienation. But there is another more subconscious form of parental alienation. And parents, including you and your ex, don't do that on purpose. For example, it can be the flatness in the voice when the kids mention the other parent. It can be the sigh. It can be the silence after they report a good weekend at the co-parent's place. The idle frustration that leaks into the room because it has nowhere else to go. No one decides consciously, hey, I'm going to alienate my kids for fun today. No. Our nervous system is doing it for us. Our unprocessed resentment towards the co-parent is doing it. Whether you resent your ex or she resents you, both of that resentment spills into their kids, and the kids are bearing the brunt of it. And here's the part that most men don't want to look at. Your dysregulation, dad's dysregulation in general, is the fuel for that alienation in both homes. Well, you may tell me, Glenn, what are you talking about? I cannot control her. No, you can't. But every reactive message, every escalation, every moment where the conflict reignites, and you're responsible for that, that feeds her nervous system threat response. You remember we spoke about this last week. When you perceive something as threatening, your nervous system immediately switches into threat response, fight, flight, or freeze. And that response leaks onto your kids, whether it's done from her end or from your end. And the same with you. When you are dysregulated and you see your kids, you're more likely to lose it and say things you later regret about their mother. Or you may engage in subconscious alienation with them. So here's the fact I want you to carry. You cannot regulate her. We agree on that. But your consistent regulation over time changes what she has to react to. In other words, when you regulate yourself, you build an environment without conflict. And that changes the temperature of the whole system. When the temperature drops, the kids stop being caught in the middle. You understand? The second risk to you losing the relationship with your kids is slower, and in some ways harder to see because it doesn't feel like a crisis until it's already happened. And look, I continue speaking with many fathers in my research interviews who told me they no longer have a relationship with their teenagers. Those kids are actually asking to live with their mom sometimes. And those were not bad fathers. Those men who thought they were doing the right thing. And somewhere in the teenage years, the kid just got busy, stopped calling back as quickly, started choosing to be somewhere else, or being physically present, but emotionally not there at all. And there was not necessarily a big fight to do that. Maybe the dad was not exploding all the time. There was no specific moment. That window just closed. So here is how it closes and why it's important for you to understand, especially if you have younger kids. A teenager's nervous system is making a simple calculation, not consciously, and definitely not deliberately. They're kids. But the nervous system is asking, does being around this person cost me something? Is there a mood I have to manage? A reaction I have to avoid? An atmosphere I have to walk carefully through? Those questions are not being asked when they're teenagers. They're being asked when they're kids. And every time the answer is yes, well, the kid files it away. In other words, do I feel fully safe there? And can I trust my dad to be the guarantor of that safety? And if the answer is no, well, they're gone. They're in teenage years. And they may be there in the home physically because they must, but they're not there emotionally. And it's not because they stopped loving you, but it's because their nervous system learned to protect themselves, just like your nervous system tries to protect you. So what I want you to get from this is that the window doesn't close dramatically in one event. It closes in a series of ordinary moments. And it's already happening if you're not regulating yourself, if you're stuck in this reactivity loop, and if you're fighting or fleeing or just freezing. If the atmosphere in your home is one they have to brace for, it is happening. The third risk is the one that's fully in your hands. And it's not about her. It's not about the co-parenting dynamic. It's about what happens when your nervous system activates with your kids directly. I'll give you my own story here. So when my youngest would come back from his mom when he was way younger, there was often a period, sometimes 2 days, where he was resistant, moody, not wanting to be with me. He wouldn't follow routines, he didn't want to engage with me, and sometimes he would tell me, Dad, I do not want to be here, I want to go back to mom's. What I understand now is that this has a name. Children moving between two homes go through a transition, a period of adjustment where they're leaving one environment they're just gotten used to and landing in another. I called it the transition blues. So leaving dad's and going to mom's and vice versa. So my son even told me at some point that it's so frustrating to have to switch homes just when I started enjoying where I was. It's the same with mom and here. When I get used to one, I have to go to the other. That's the essence of the transition blues. Now, look, that's not an attitude problem. That's a kid who needs time and space to land where he arrives. I didn't know that. Back in the day, I was still a lot ignorant, right? And so what I was doing instead, I was doing the opposite of allowing him to land. When he resisted the routine, My nervous system interpreted that, oh my God, I'm losing my son. I know it's irrational, but nervous system is not rational. So when he wouldn't listen, I imposed consequences. When he resisted me, I would raise my voice. I was treating a regulation problem like a behavioral problem. And every time I did that, I was breaking the very container he needed to complete his transition. Over time, where that led, he felt less safe. Not from any single explosion or raised voice or consequence or whatever I was doing. Sometimes I wouldn't even explode or do anything. I was just holding it all together, but my face showed it. He felt it. And that accumulated pattern, he learned that dad's environment was not reliable, safe to land in. The resistance got longer, the trust eroded. At some point, he would arrive and for full 2 days, it was resistance. And that's the only 2 days I had with him for the week. So the distance between us grew without either of us choosing it. So what turned it away and around, it was not a conversation and it was not an apology. It was a consistent shift in how I showed up during those transition periods. Of course, I had to learn how to regulate myself. And it's something that I teach my clients inside of my program, Dad's Rise from Trigger to Trusted. But when he was dysregulated, I stayed regulated. I stopped trying to force him into the routine and started building the kind of environment he'd want to come back to. I gave him space to arrive on his own terms. Come in, touch his toys, visit his home, visit his room, do the things, land here. And I stayed warm while I did it. So there was no single moment when it changed. It was gradual. Trust rebuilt the same way it eroded, in small accumulated moments. Now, with him, it's rare that there is any resistance at all. When he comes through the door, he's glad to be here. He's happy, he gives me a hug, and I still give him the time to land. Usually it's about 30 minutes right now. It's not hours or days as it used to be. And then we can just become operational and just being fully here. And I'm telling you this because that shift was not about being a better father in some abstract sense. It was about being regulated when he wasn't. That's the whole thing. And it's available to you. So what we covered today is that you have 3 main risks of losing the relationship with your kids down the road. And that's probably your biggest fear, admit it. But behind it, there is only one culprit. Your dysregulation feeds her nervous system resentment and gives alienation oxygen. Your dysregulation is what the teenager's nervous system is calculating the cost of. Your dysregulation is what breaks the container your kids need most during transition. When you regulate yourself, not perfectly, not all at once, at the very least not at the beginning, all 3 risks move against you. So when you regulate yourself, not perfectly, not all at once, all 3 risks reduce dramatically. That's exactly what I helped Tyson to do. He did not fix her. He didn't win in court. He changed what he was bringing into the room, and the room changed around him. That's exactly what allowed him to rebuild healthy co-parenting with his ex, despite false allegations in the court. That's what allowed him to build a precious relationship with his kids. That's what allowed him to stand up on his 2 feet and walk confidently in his life. Now, if this video landed, I put together a free guide at dadsrise.com. That guide is going to go deeper into all of this, the 2 layers of pain that most programs never address, and the full RISE method that Tyson used and that I use with the men I work with. It's 10 minutes, it's free, the link is in the description. Just do it. And before you go, I want to ask you something directly. Think about the last time your kids came back to you after time at their mom's. What was the atmosphere like in the first hour? What did you do with whatever they brought through the door? Drop it in the comments. Because most men never actually look at that transition as data. And when you look at it as data, you start to see what's actually happening and what's actually available to you. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, remember, when dads rise, kids thrive. Take care.